Okay, we're on the air. Hi, Mia. Hi, Arzu. Welcome to our chat. And this is actually not so much for you or me. This is for everyone listening in. My name is Timon Meyer, and I encourage all of you listening in out there to engage in our chat. You can use the chat function that you see in the upper right segment of your screen. Just feel free and fire away with questions for Mia and for Arzu. So thanks. I think, first of all, it is great to finally meet you, even though it's not in person, but you're connected live with us here at Siemensstadt. And I thought it was an inspiring session you guys just had, so thank you for that. There were a couple of interesting questions that came through the ether from our audience, and I'd like to ask you a couple of these right now. One that came in from Luciano, and he asks, how prepared are the infrastructures of cities to be developed into smart cities? I think that's a pretty generic question, but maybe if you pick an example or two that you might be aware of, Mia and Arzu, could you provide an answer to that question for Luciano, please?
Yes, I could start, yeah?
Sure thing, yes, yeah. Mia, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, well, basically it's a leading question because, of course, we're not prepared. We need to develop a lot. But yeah. I think that, we discussed this in the session, that smaller cities might build up this new infrastructure more quickly than larger. And one example that we have in Lund, which is a really small city of 120 people normally, and is that they built up this Internet of Things network, connected the city, the science park, and the research facilities, and opened it up for innovators and scientists and startups to test out new innovations on. That's kind of the infrastructure that you need to really get things going into a smarter city, I would say.
I see. And Mia, are you aware of cities perhaps a little larger than Lund that already employ this kind of approach in a good way?
I couldn't name an example, but I know that I've been looking at different Chinese larger cities that they built from scratch, which is kind of what perhaps you're trying to do with Siemensstadt 2.0. I think it's easier when you build or renew a big city. But we also know that San Francisco in US, they are having more of a mental or people infrastructure that could investigate in new innovations coming from the citizens and decide on what of those ideas should they implement into the city. That's also one way of becoming a smarter, innovative city.
Okay. Arzu, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, actually, I also add that cities shouldn't just focus on the infrastructure and technology. And the critically important part of the smart city projects, I think it is a missing part in the smart city discussions, is marketing and communication. And I mean, how to tell a smart city story, because citizens need to understand what's going on in their cities, and they are great resources to provide feedback into the new system. So, of course, city officials and municipality leaders set some performance goals and KPIs for the smart city projects, and also create smart city strategy along with the communication and marketing strategy. So they need to inform the citizens, not just citizens, for all stakeholders, and to create a collaboration, to create partnerships, and also transparent communication is really key to develop successful smart city projects.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think you kind of touched on that issue in the panel discussion earlier as well. Smart city, Arzu, is a term that encompasses so many different aspects, right? And you have worked on a variety of projects. So I guess my question, as a follow-up to the previous one is, Like, how do you start? Like, what are the most important aspects that, define a smart city? If somebody came to you and consulted you and asked you, Arzu, how do we go about this? How do you start?
Yes, this is a very good question. Actually, each city has different dynamics. We cannot just copy Songdo case to Berlin, or Istanbul case in London or New York City. So the culture of the city is different, way of living is different, and dynamics is different. And so that's why the city officials, especially prior to, and on the other hand, there are some political challenges, managerial challenges, and financial challenges. Cities cannot immediately jump on the smart city projects and on every level. So they need to prioritize their, if they need to focus on, for instance, mobility solutions. If there is a problem on the traffic, congestion, traffic safety, they can start from there. If there is a big urgency on the energy efficiency, they can start from there. And the other thing is, as I told in the panel, economy is really important at this moment for the cities, because they lost many, revenue channels at this moment. So depends on the city's dynamics and needs of the citizens. The city officials can prioritize the projects, and step by step, they created a smart city strategy. As Mia said, they can allocate a specific team to focus on developing the strategies. I had an example here in the Florida. We work with a small city. My experience is most, metropolitan municipalities larger than, a couple of millions. So here in small city, they were so eager to start with the smart city projects, and they invited us to bid. But we noticed that they are not so ready, because there is no political will, there is no allocated team to focus on the smart city strategy, and also they don't have enough finance to be able to start the project. So all these elements are so important to create smart city strategy, and these strategies are living documents at the end.
And so, Mia, do you have a similar viewpoint or anything you'd like to add to what Arzu just said?
I totally agree. I think many cities want to become the smart city, and they think that if they implement one digital thing, then they're there. But it's a continuous evolution, I would say. And then what is needed for the city is to actually put together the leadership, the decision-making process, and prioritizing the needs of the city, which they could start with, and put the money behind the decisions. And I think this is actually the biggest challenges towards a smart city. We have the solutions.
I see. So it's determination of the cities. It's also communications. I think that's an interesting aspect as well. I want to kind of touch on a political aspect, because if you look at international large cities, mega cities, not all of them are located in, shall we say, democratically oriented systems. Could that be a problem?
Well, I would actually like to go to the two functions that are really interesting to look at, both as a good example and as a warning example. And that is the Chinese infrastructure, WePay and WeChat. That is actually connecting everything into, you can earn money there, you can pay whatever and order whatever. And so it's like the true dream of a smart city, perhaps.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they survey everything, so they could actually control you. And I think that our challenge to build this dream is also into building security for individuals. And we're actually discussing this on a global level, how to do that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can add, Mia, in the United States, I've been joining, the several smart city conferences since 2018. The only topic, and mostly discussed topic, is data privacy. Who is going to own data? Who is going to share the data? And how we can provide, privacy, because cybersecurity is becoming more and more risk for the both cities and the countries. When technology evolves, the cybersecurity is becoming a more
and that actually goes. Sorry, I was interrupting you.
Sure, go ahead.
And that actually goes to self-driving cars and vehicles and big trucks on the road that we really want to make efficient and self-sufficient with AI and interconnections. But even there, it's really important to be open and secure. How do we do that? That's the trick of the future, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And Arzu, to get back to your point, I should note that I've been speaking to a lot of people recently who are very, skeptical, if not even critical of smart city approaches. So how do you address that security issue? How do you make people feel safer? How do you tell them that their data is not being abused or misused?
It is a big conversation, so I don't have an answer yet for this, but in my opinion.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Maya.
I actually do have an answer. I think there is a room for a new type of service where each and one of us can control what data is being offered for free, for example, to health authorities or something that we really trust. For some suppliers of goods and or services that we also trust, we can say that if they use my data and they earn money on it, I should earn money too. And then there are some users or some organizations that we exclude from having our data. And not until each and one of us can control their own data, we can trust the authorities to use it, I think. And I'm surprised that there are not more software services like this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there are some of them, but maybe not enough, because I do think it's going to be a big issue from here on out. Yeah. So a couple of more questions from the audience, but I think we sort of preempted most of them. How many cities in the world possess all of the, I think what the question is trying to say, Larissa asked the question, possess all of the ingredients that would make it a smart city? I guess right now the answer is none, right? And she's also asking, in contrast, in how many cities around the world has their COVID-19 technology succeeded? I think that's an interesting question, though it may not relate directly to the smart city approach, but which metropolises around the globe have had an effective COVID-19 strategy? And is there any correlation between that question and
well, of course there is a correlation, but I think that we will see more reports in upcoming months about how COVID impacted the smart cities and cities in general. Right now, at this moment, the only conversation are going around public health issues and the economic issues, and so we will see in a near future. And I would love to say, as the earlier question you had, actually, to be able to create this type of data sharing and open data thing is. Some countries and cities have trustable governments. At that point, the citizens are not, afraid of sharing their data, because when I made a research about using the chip, one of the interviews was about using the chips, collecting data, and when I made this research, I found that in Sweden and Switzerland, it is easily acceptable because they trust their government. And
I have a chip.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
About this. I want to learn more about.
I don't. No chip.
I will have to see.
Well, I was hoping more from it, actually. It's like I've installed a USB memory, so I can plant information, and I can make things access the information, but it's not gathering information about me as I go along, which I was actually hoping, and I can't use it so much because the devices are not adjusted to it yet.
Can you speak on your head? I'm sorry if you.
Yeah. So it's installed here. I have a small chip here. And
Wow.
right now it's my LinkedIn profile, but it could be anything I could put on there.
Okay. Oh,
So I charge it with
Wow.
my phone like this.
oh,
And
it's so cool.
That is next level, Mia. I'm
yeah.
impressed. I wasn't expecting that.
Wow.
But you're true. We do trust our government, and if they say please stay at home, we do stay at home, even if it's not, you know, forbidden to go out. So, but I would answer the question with, I'm kind of impressed, not only by the COVID-19 reaction, but by everything they do in South Korea.
Yeah, I agree.
Because yeah,
I was going to mention that Seoul
yeah,
and
they
South Korea.
just wiped out, and they just took a big decision that everybody should be tested, and just followed every ill-turned person. But they also do the best series online, and they like the music, the BTS. I mean, they're just in the future. So I think if there's something you should look at, it's Seoul and South Korea, and just be amazed by what they're doing. And they are actually democratic. I think they are. Still.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah.
the decision-making power that they have is like, let's do this, and then boom, everything just happens.
Agreed. Absolutely. So I think the other question I have here is, you know, many cities in the world may have claimed to have the technology to allow it to be called a smart city, but the epidemic, COVID-19, kind of tore down that myth. I think, yeah, it kind of laid it open. So I guess we can all agree on that. Perhaps, Mia, allow me to go one step back. You mentioned, I wasn't aware of that the Ideon Science Park was founded as far back as 1983.
Yeah.
So it must be kind of a connection of amazing and fortunate, perhaps sometimes, events that led to, you know, it being what it is today. Can you elaborate a little on that in terms of like a best practice? And I know Christiana asked this question earlier, but like what's a takeaway for a location like Siemensstadt? And then maybe Arzu, you can add to that, because I loved your, you know, kind of start small and then extrapolate from that and go bigger throughout the city.
Yes, okay. So Ideon Science Park was actually a reaction to a crisis. So in the late 70s, the south of Sweden was heavy in ship industry, but this went to Asia in a very short term of time, and there was a lot of discussion going on public government, university, what to do, how to save the people that are unemployed. And one of the professors from Lund University, he went to United States and visited something called a science park. It didn't exist in Europe by then. And then he went back, and on the plane back, he opened a paper, and he read about that Cambridge was going to open a science park, and he just ran to the university and the government here and said, we need to do this first. So they had the first science park meeting where they gathered the triple helix, so the university, the public government, and the private chamber of commerce and industry. And they sat down in a farm field with just 6 chairs and a table, and said, now we have started the science park. And I just want to say this, because building a smart city is not about the buildings. It's not about, you know, when we built this big house, then we can do everything. It's about the people that can actually come together and make the decisions. So that's
great point.
Something that we have been working on for all this time, to bring in the right people from the right organizations to actually make something happen. So that's really something that I could confirm is working. And then over the time, of course, large companies just like Siemens placed R&D teams here. So Ericsson, Sony, we have Bosch here from Germany,
Yeah.
And TÜV Rheinland is actually here too. So by bringing them in and into the innovation community, I think you have a great chance with Siemens and the Siemensstadt, because they're willing to invest from their side, but not alone. They want to be met by their investments by decision and development. I think that will gain the whole startup community that you have in Berlin. I think this will boom. So that's.
So Arzu, do you agree with that? Is it about the people being brought together in the right way and kind of agreeing? And you also talked about the role of government. I think that is certainly a big factor too.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I agree with what Mia said. I think European cities are far advanced on the smart cities because, since starting FP7 programs and Horizon 2020 and technology platforms European Commission has created. So learning from each other, this type of mechanisms and financing mechanism was really helpful to build collaborations with universities, NGOs, cities, and big corporations. So these lessons learned at this moment, as far as I notice, are used with other countries in this approach. So that's why starting small, doing demos, and from learning experience, deploy this project in different cities in the European Union was a really successful strategy, as far as I noticed, because since 2017, I've been living in the United States. Before I lived here, it's a big country, but in the conferences, it is clearly stated that we are, United States has been following the smart city movement a bit back from Europe and Asian cities. So, so that's why some of my explanations are not so, fit to Berlin and other, European cities. But this is the reality. Many city administrations doesn't still have some gap of knowledge and capacity in the offices. So, and they are still figuring out, how they are going to start and then build this smart city project. So I lived and worked in Turkey as well. And this is another case that there are good examples, but there are also bad examples. There are, smart city was a buzzword for a long time, and intelligent cities before that. So the mayors want to be, pioneer of this movement, but since their, teams are not ready to do that, they made bad investments. So waste a lot of funding, as far as I know.
I think the real challenge moving forward is not to run too far away from the countryside. So the smart cities are really like futuristic and connected, and then you have the countryside and it's way behind. It's like 100 years in between. I think the real trick is not to build a smart city, but a smart country and a smart globe.
Yeah, I think that's a great message. I just want to say, quickly to everyone watching, this is your last chance to intervene. You can still ask a question, but we're going to have to wrap it up in a few minutes. Mia, maybe to your point, you mentioned earlier that if you were to do it over again, if you were given that chance, you would employ a more inclusive model. Yeah. What would that look like? I was kind of intrigued by how you put that.
We've actually learned a lot about that lately, because we had a project we noticed in our incubator. We've been a high-tech park for all 37 years, but we noticed in our park that the incubators were like 90% male entrepreneurs, and if they get investments in Sweden, it's a fact that only 1% goes to women entrepreneurs. So we wanted to change that. So we did a lot of investigation on how could we change that? Why is it like that is? And it could be easy things like, okay, on our website, we might not post, a boxing gloves and a hammer to attract new entrepreneurs. We could maybe show some impact level inspirations instead. So, and we learned also, if we talk about the technology, 90% in the audience became men. If we talk about the impact of how can we handle the plastic situation for a better world, then 90% are women. So we need to be in between. So it's how you communicate. It's not only that you communicate, but how you communicate, how you bring in inclusiveness, and what are your top of minds. Is the top of mind that you're going to work with AI, or is the top of mind that you're going to solve child cancer patients that are when they grow up, they have a risk of falling back into illness. That's a challenge-driven innovation, but AI could be the answer.
Yeah,
so we turned around, and we actually, in just 1.5 years, changed the level of female entrepreneurs and founders in the incubator to 35%.
That's beautiful. I don't think that's such a bad number. You know, I think a lot of cases around the world would be quite proud if they had that. On a positive note, this year Urban Tech Summit features, I think, 60% female speakers. So that's a wonderful thing for the first time in history. More ladies. Yeah, go ladies. All right. I think we're about to wrap it up. Any final quick remarks from you, Arzu or Mia?
Holistic approach is the key to success for smart cities, marketing and communication, informing the citizens. I would love to emphasize this.
Yes, and I agree. And I would say that the sustainable economic growth lies in the competitiveness of innovations. So don't be afraid to test and find new innovations, and cooperate across borders. We're here for you.
Beautiful. Those are great final thoughts. I want to thank you so much, and greetings to Lund in Sweden and Florida, respectively. Thank you so much, guys, for being on. It's been a pleasure being with you, albeit virtually. I hope we get the chance to see each other in person one day, once this whole pandemic is over at the latest.
I hope so,
yeah. And I want to thank you so much for the conversation and for being a part of Urban Tech Summit 2020. All the best, and I'll be talking to you soon. All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care. All right. Bye.
Bye.